Welcome, myth lovers, to another fascinating journey into the world of mythology. Today, we're diving deep into the underworld to uncover some of the most bizarre and intriguing questions about Hades, the Greek god of the dead. Hades is often misunderstood, shrouded in mystery and fear, but today, we're going to unravel some of that darkness by answering 10 of the weirdest questions you've probably never thought to ask. And trust me, question number 10 is so strange that it will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the god of the underworld. So make sure you stick around until the end. Let's kick things off with a question that's often overlooked. Question 1. Did Hades have any pets other than Cerberus? Cerberus, the three-headed guardian of the underworld, is undoubtedly the most famous of Hades' companions, but the Lord of the Dead didn't stop at just one pet. Some myths hint at other creatures under Hades' care, like the black horses that drew his chariot, or the lesser-known spirits like the Care's ferocious female spirits associated with death and doom. These creatures, while not as iconic as Cerberus, added to the menacing atmosphere of the underworld, ensuring that no soul would escape Hades' realm. However, Cerberus remains the most loyal and prominent, symbolizing Hades' control over the boundary between the living and the dead. Moving on to question 2. Did Hades ever regret kidnapping Persephone? The abduction of Persephone is one of the most well-known myths in Greek mythology, but did Hades ever regret his actions? The answer is more complex than a simple yes or no. In the original myths, there's no explicit mention of Hades expressing regret. Ancient Greek gods were not known for their remorse. However, over time, their relationship evolved. Persephone, who was initially taken against her will, gradually adapted to her role as queen of the underworld. Some later interpretations of the myth even suggest a growing affection between them. Hades, often depicted as a stern and unyielding god, may not have felt regret in the human sense, but he did show a deep respect and care for Persephone. Their union, though born of force, became a partnership that brought balance between life and death. Here's one that might have crossed your mind. Question 3. Could Hades leave the underworld if he wanted to? Contrary to what some might think, Hades wasn't imprisoned in the underworld. He could leave his domain and venture into the world of the living if he wished. In fact, there are myths where Hades does leave the underworld, such as when he abducted Persephone or when he sought out the healing powers of Asclepius, the god of medicine, after being wounded. However, Hades rarely chose to leave his realm. His presence was often unwelcome among both gods and mortals, who feared his association with death. More than that, Hades was deeply committed to his role as the Lord of the Dead, ensuring that the natural order between life and death was maintained. His dominion was the underworld, and he preferred to stay where his power was absolute. Next up, question 4. Why isn't Hades considered one of the Olympian gods? Hades is one of the 3 most powerful gods, alongside his brothers Zeus and Poseidon. Yet, he's often excluded from the list of the 12 Olympians. The reason lies in the nature of his domain. The Olympian gods are those who reside on Mount Olympus, overseeing various aspects of the natural and human worlds. Hades, on the other hand, chose to rule the underworld, a realm separate from the living world and Olympus. This physical and symbolic separation made it difficult for him to be included among the Olympians. However, his influence and power were undeniable, and he was deeply respected, even feared, by both gods and mortals alike. For question 5, was Hades ever overthrown or challenged for his rule of the underworld? Hades' rule over the underworld was remarkably stable compared to the tumultuous reigns of other gods. Unlike Zeus, who faced constant threats to his throne, Hades' position as Lord of the underworld was uncontested. This is partly because the underworld was a place most gods and mortals feared to tread. There were few who would dare challenge Hades in his own domain. However, there are a few myths where heroes like Hercules or Orpheus descended into the underworld, but their goals were not to overthrow Hades. They sought to retrieve souls or seek favors, acknowledging Hades' authority in the process. This speaks to the respect and fear Hades commanded, ensuring that his rule remained secure throughout the ages. Let's dig into question 6. Did Hades participate in the Titanomachy, the war against the Titans? Absolutely, Hades played a crucial role in the Titanomachy, the epic war between the Olympian gods and the Titans. Hades, along with his brothers Zeus and Poseidon, led the charge against the older generation of gods. His most significant contribution was the use of the Helm of Darkness, which rendered him invisible to both gods and titans. This allowed him to move undetected during battle, striking down enemies and helping turn the tide in favor of the Olympians. After their victory, the three brothers drew lots to divide the cosmos among themselves, with Hades receiving the underworld as his domain. This war not only solidified Hades' power, but also established the order that would govern the gods and the world thereafter. And speaking of the Helm of Darkness, here's question 7. What exactly was the Helm of Darkness, and how did Hades use it? The Helm of Darkness, also known as the Cap of Invisibility, was one of the most powerful artifacts in Greek mythology. Forged by the Cyclopes, this helm granted its wearer complete invisibility, even to the gods. Hades used it during the Titanomachy to great effect, moving unseen through the battlefield and striking his enemies when they least expected it. But the helm wasn't just for battle. It symbolized the unseen, mysterious nature of Hades' rule over the underworld. It also represents the concept of death itself, something that is always present yet often goes unnoticed until it's too late. This helm became a key element of Hades' identity, marking him as a god who could influence both the seen and unseen realms. Now for question 8. Why is Hades often associated with wealth and riches? Hades is not only the god of the dead, but also associated with wealth and riches. The reason for this dual role lies beneath the earth itself. All precious metals and gems are found underground, making Hades the overseer of these hidden treasures. In fact, one of his titles, Plauton, directly translates to the wealthy one. This aspect of Hades reflects the ancient belief that wealth comes from the earth, a gift of the underworld. However, this wealth was often seen as a double-edged sword. While it could bring prosperity, it was also tied to the inevitable journey every mortal must take into Hades' realm. Thus, Hades' connection to wealth serves as a reminder of the thin line between life, death, and the material riches that bind them. Let's tackle question 9. What happened to the souls of particularly wicked or evil people? Hades' underworld was a complex and vast place, with different regions designated for souls based on their deeds in life. The most notorious and wicked souls were sent to Tartarus, a deep and dark part of the underworld reserved for eternal punishment. Here, the souls faced torments tailored to their crimes, punishments that were both endless and fittingly severe. For instance, Sisyphus, who tried to cheat death, was condemned to push a boulder up a hill for eternity, only for it to roll back down each time he neared the top. Meanwhile, Tantalus, who betrayed the gods, was cursed to stand in a pool of water with fruit hanging above him, forever out of reach. These punishments were not just retribution but also served to maintain the moral order in the universe, reinforcing the idea that even in death, justice would be served. And now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, what's the weirdest thing about Hades that most people don't know? Here it is, the strangest fact about Hades. Despite his dark and fearsome reputation, Hades was actually one of the few Greek gods who remained completely faithful to his wife Persephone. This is in stark contrast to the other gods, particularly Zeus, who was notorious for his numerous affairs. Hades, however, showed a remarkable level of loyalty and devotion to Persephone, never straying from their marriage. This fidelity is particularly intriguing given Hades' role as the god of the dead, a position that would seemingly tempt or excuse infidelity due to the isolation of his realm. Yet Hades defied this expectation, embodying a complex character, who, despite his association with death and fear, demonstrated a deep and unwavering commitment to his queen. This fact challenges the typical view of Hades as purely malevolent and highlights the nuances of his character. So, there you have it, 10 weird and wonderful questions about Hades answered. Did any of these surprise you? If you enjoyed this deep dive into the myths, don't forget to hit that like button, share with your friends, and subscribe for more mythological mysteries uncovered. And as always, keep your curiosity alive, there's so much more to explore.